and players smiling.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by PrizePicks and the GameTime app.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Big Three NBA podcast. I promise you it will be the most interesting one you have ever listened to.
It's going to be all right.
If you're watching, Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn, and special surprise guest, Lauren Williams from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And when I say surprise guest,
shocking guest.
She received an invite from Sherrod on January 6th asking her to be on the Big Three podcast today.
I wish I could.
And yet,
I wish I could show you guys the invite.
It might blur it out a little bit. Actually, I have it on my phone as well. She got a calendar invite. Organizer
right now,
Anthony Sherrod,
and there is no
just the two of them.
which is there's no record of me sending her that on my set.
He looked at his set messages and cannot find it.
It's crazy, Sherrod.
But Kwani, I think you probably hit the nail on the head. It's divine intervention.
I really think so.
Because there's no other, because this has literally never happened before. So boom, there it is.
Atlanta Hawks beat reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, buried also my best friend. But the Celtics don't even play the Hawks until
Sherrod. Went to my school.
Next week. It's next week.
I know, but the 18th is a little like we would have probably done this next.
It's still technically 10 days away.
True. All right. You know what? This gives people more time to prepare for that game. Maybe that hypes the game up even more.
Yeah.
Also. So, Lauren, we'll just get right into it from your perspective. Obviously, the Celtics are a team that everyone is vying for this year. The reigning NBA champs. But the Hawks have been making some waves as well. Trae Young really doing his thing. A half-court heave this past week. What have you been seeing in Atlanta from the Hawks this season so far?
Yeah, I think honestly, from the beginning, I said that I didn't think that this Hawks team would be a very good team. And Gary always gives me crap whenever I talk about the Hawks.
It's like opposite day.
It's opposite day every time. And
she is dependable as Charles Barkley on her picks.
Stop.
Guaranteed.
That's not fair.
Her opinions are well informed, though.
The Hawks are going to be terrible. Guaranteed. And they beat the Celtics twice in 3 days in March. The champion Celtics, a month before the playoffs start, they beat them without Trae twice. And
Gary, you never heard of Magic City Flu? Ooh. Magic City Flu.
Yeah, he know about it. He know about it. But I'm not the guy to retire. I'm not going to talk about how much he know about Magic City Flu.
Why does he know about that?
No idea what you're talking about.
Both teams play hard. Make mislead.
But yeah, you never know who's going to go off on any given night. But I've always said that this team would be, to get back to the point, Kwani, it's going to be a fun team. And they've been very, very fun. I mean, somehow they beat the Celtics without Trae Young to kick off their NBA Cup group run. They beat Cleveland twice. I think this is a team that really likes to play up to their competition. And then you have games kind of like Tuesday night's win over the Jazz. They had no business being as close as it was because the Hawks are the better team, but they ended up beating them at the buzzer. So, you know, I think this is a very weird team where they're still figuring out who they are and what their identity is. And Quinn Snyder often says that this team has a long runway because of how young they are. And I think that sort of plays into the idea of them playing up to their competition versus, you know, not beating teams that they on paper should beat. But as any of those players will tell you, this is the NBA. They're all NBA players. Any given night, you just have no idea what to expect. And yeah, I think we're having a lot of fun here in Atlanta covering this team. You know, I think it starts with some of the guys that they have at the head of the snake. You mentioned Trae Young and that half-court heave, but also Jalen Johnson is such a key part of what they're trying to do. And he's sort of hurt right now, dealing with a shoulder injury, but when he gets back, he just makes that offense so much more dynamic.
Well, they're not only that, Lauren, but they're a dangerous team. And as you alluded to, the fact that they've beaten the Cavs a couple of times, they've beaten the Celtics. When you have a team that's young and finding ways to beat teams that on paper are probably a little bit further down the road than they are, and you come up on a trade deadline, which we're coming close up on that now, what do you think they need to do, if anything, to bolster their chances of maybe making a little bit more than just an appearance in the playoffs, but actually make a little noise while they're there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they need to figure out what their future looks like at center. I think right now they have Clint Capella, who's on an expiring contract. He's been playing extremely well for them this season, but as weird as it is to say, he's on the other side of 30, and especially for big men, that doesn't necessarily bode well for a team as young as the Hawks with several players who are under the age of 25. I mean, DeAndre Hunter and Trae Young are their oldest veterans who play significant minutes in the rotation, whereas Bogdan Bogdanovic has been dealing with some injuries. As I mentioned, Clint Capella, he's not often the guy that they close those games with. It's Onyeka Okongwu, who is 24 years old. So they have a very young core. So I think they need to decide what the future of this team is going to look like at center, whether that's going to be Onyeka Okongwu, who is undersized, who has elite touch around the rim, but he kind of gets unfortunately bullied by some of those 7-footers on any given night. It's not that he's not capable of those matchups, but it's a consistency thing. It's just you never know what you're going to get from him on any given night. So maybe this is the time that they find a center who is in maybe that 25, 26 year range that they can continue to develop alongside Onyeka Okongwu, and maybe that's the tandem that they work with. And then I think they also need to address the backup point guard situation. Trae Young's doing a great job this year for them, but what happens when he goes to the bench is that the offense takes a little bit of a dip in terms of shot creation. And you're asking a lot of a guy like DeAndre Hunter, who's not somebody who, is often known for creating his own shot. He's been doing a great job with knocking threes down, attacking the rim, but he's not exactly known as somebody who is able to go out and get his own bucket every single night. They looked at a guy like Kobe Buffkin as a potential person to be that, but he's been dealing with an injury all season. He got shut down last month to have surgery, which should have happened, I believe, on Tuesday. And now we have no idea what he's truly capable of. I mean, at Michigan, he wasn't a true point guard. He played more of the two. And so for them to kind of shift his role or what his skill set is able to do and try to put the ball in this, it's a lot. They've experimented with guys like Vit Krejci. Jalen Johnson handles some of that secondary playmaker role, but I really do think that they need to have an idea of somebody whose main role it is to just go out and help create opportunities for everyone else, because I believe they lost to the Clippers by like 20 points, and non-Trae minutes were pretty atrocious, especially in the first half. They were like a -15 without Trae, and they were a -5 with him. So that's a pretty big disparity. Yeah. So I think if I'm the Hawks, those are some of the things that if you don't necessarily address one at the trade deadline, that's something that they definitely should address in the offseason. Yeah.
Lauren, I have several questions. One, now that the Falcons are out, how is the city taking to this team? I know they've been waiting a long time for the Hawks to actually be significant. Mm-hmm. And one, like it's kind of it's a loaded question, but how does the city, what does the city feel about Trae? Like, obviously, he's been on the block for years, or they need to get Trae, or they're better without Trae. They should have kept DeJounte Murray and traded Trae. Like, what does the city feel? Because obviously, like, Dominique Wilkins is the ultimate Hawk, right? And then there's kind of nobody else. I mean, there's no real signature Hawk. And it seems like Trae has a chance to be that guy.
Yeah.
What does the city think about, the fan base think about Trae?
I think the diehard Hawks fans are very much bought into Trae, especially with what he's been able to do this season, leading the league in not only total assists, but assists per game. And you look at the numbers recently, I think after yesterday's win, he's like 102 or 107 more assists than Tyrese Halliburton, who is second in the league in total assists. So I think as far as diehard fans go, they've definitely bought into what Trae can do for this team. And they believe he is a guy that can, take them to a championship. I think for the casual fan, Atlanta's a very weird city. It's a very transplant heavy city. You see a lot of, opposing teams in the stands for, certain games. Like the Timberwolves, you'll see a lot of Timberwolves fans. Gary, you've seen it at Celtics games. There are a lot more Celtics fans than Hawks fans. It's like that with the Lakers. And so I think
until the Hawks start winning and all of a sudden it gets loud. Like, yes. It's like the same people that was like, yeah, Celtics, Hawks, the Hawks, yeah, like every time I'm like, wait a minute, this place has got real loud.
Yeah.
Being like 75% Celtic fans. Now the Hawks are up 10. Now it's
Hawks.
Now it's Magic City. It's popping up in here. Sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, I remark about it all the time where it's definitely a little bit confusing at games, as you mentioned, until things start swinging the Hawks' way and fans totally buy into what they're doing. I think the big thing with this team, and sort of similar to the Eastern Conference Finals run that they had in 2021, they're waiting for this team to show them what they're capable of. They're waiting for this team to show them that they're a team worth buying into. And so, they get a lot of good spurts here and there. As I've said, I think this team is going to be a fun team this year. I don't necessarily think they're going to be a good team, but I think we're seeing a lot of good things as far as the foundation of a culture that Quinn Snyder wants to build. We're seeing them put together winning habits. I think, again, because they're so young, it's hard to see them being able to pull some. And I mentioned this to Sherrod a few weeks ago when we chatted on his podcast.
Do you remember that, Sherrod?
Do you remember that?
Do you remember that?
Listen, Bum DMC, relax, all right? All right?
Remember that?
Loosen up that zipper. You're getting a little warm up there. Loosen up the zipper. Bum DMC.
Remember that conversation, Sherrod, or she got to refresh your memory?
I mean,
I did refresh your image and make you disappear.
Don't do that again.
Don't do it again.
The mother thing.
I'm just asking. I'm just saying.
But it's just tough for me to see them facing off against a team like the Celtics in a 7-game series. And I think it'll be a competitive series, but when it comes down to that game 7, it's just a little bit tougher for me to see, be convinced that the Hawks are a team that's going to pull them off, especially after watching, as I mentioned, games against the Clippers, where you have a sort of healthy Kawhi Leonard coming back, and he's still sort of running them out of the building along with James Harden and Norm Powell. You watch the Lakers game, and that environment where the Lakers fans are just blowing the roof off the building, and it just seemed like the Hawks didn't quite know how to handle that situation. And so the playoffs are just such a different beast. You think about the people on that playoff team, as I mentioned, the Eastern Conference run, there are only 4 people left from that. I mean, you have an experienced guy like Larry Nance Jr. who can speak to what it's like to be in long playoff runs, but this team is just so young. And I just think they have a lot more growing to do. But I think we're seeing a lot of good foundational pieces that they're putting together.
Gary, you said you had other questions?
I also wanted to get your thoughts on the number 1 overall pick.
Oh, I love Zachary. I love Zachary Risache.
Seems like he's blended in and become, like, obviously, if he's not averaging 30, he's not Wemby, and people kind of criticize his draft for not having a lot of star power.
Yeah.
And guys are kind of trying to find themselves. But what impact has he had on this team?
For a guy that's only 19 years old, it's surprising how much of a impact that he has.
You sound like Jason Tatum.
He's really good. I mean, I remember watching some of those early games, those first few games, and just his instincts to drive and attack the basket. And some of those finishes wouldn't go down, but it was the right decision. It's just figuring out the NBA pace. And I mean, he had that quote with John Hollinger where he mentioned how much more athletic guys in the NBA are versus what he was used to playing in France. And so I think as the game slows down, as he continues to work on his finishing, we've seen some really acrobatic stuff from him. I mean, I remember last night, which was Tuesday in their game against the Jazz, he just kind of broke out in that first quarter and had this wild, like under the basket reverse that you're just kind of like, how at 19 are you making that sort of play? And even though offensively, you know, it's not eye-popping stats, I think what really jumps out is just how much of an impact he's had on this team defensively, particularly when you pair him alongside Dyson Daniels and just sort of the havoc that they're able to wreak on the wing. I mean, the fact that he doesn't bat an eye with LeBron James charging at him at full speed, he's still willing to get in front of him and commit the foul, even though obviously you don't want him to commit the foul. It's still the right play because you'd rather try and send LeBron to the free throw line than have him score that bucket in transition. So he doesn't bat an eye at who he has to guard. He's just going to step up and do it. And it's such a breath of fresh air on this team that, as you said, he just fits in so well.
You mentioned Quinn Snyder and even the culture that he has started to create, especially with the questions around Trae Young and whether or not he could lead this team. But what have you seen from him over this past season that you think has helped make this team to get to where they are?
I think the big thing is just how much he's gotten them to buy in on defense. I mean, I remember, you guys remember that stretch when they had that cup run. They were, I think, in like the top 15 as far as defense efficiency in terms of just slowing teams down. And that's not something that you associate with the Hawks. And so I think having everybody from Trae Young, who again is a guy that nobody associated defense with, but he's one of those guys that's the first to step up in front of Damian Lillard and try to defend something. Or if he gets pulled onto a switch, he's not the liability that people used to think he was. He's still going to give you that effort. And so I think that's a big thing when you're able to get the face of the team to buy into something that didn't necessarily go along with his name. It is huge. I think also, the idea of moving DeAndre Hunter to the bench. It's not an easy thing for a guy who started almost his entire career with his first team to shift to a new role. But recognizing last year that DeAndre is a player that just seems to thrive off of, having that opportunity to see the flow of the game is huge. And so it's not an easy conversation to have, but the fact that they were both able to reach that consensus, I mean, we're seeing DeAndre be in conversations for not only most improved, but sixth man of the year.
He's finally playing in some games. That helps.
It helps.
Between him, Kawhi Leonard, and Joel Embiid, my goodness.
But guess what? Which of those three has played more games?
Oh, DeAndre, for sure.
Exactly.
He gets
no question.
He gets that brony. He get no question.
Exactly. So I think, like I said, I don't think they're a team that's necessarily ready for a long playoff run, but I do think that they're a team that could make an appearance in the playoffs, and it'll be certainly fun to watch.
Yeah, I will be looking forward to it. Hopefully you could get back in Boston for that.
Let's have them go somewhere else to kind of.
I don't know.
Don't you want to start in Boston? That's the best place.
No. If they can get to the second round, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Trae Young is ready to hear any more F Trae Young chants.
Oh, right.
But then again, maybe if it's New York, if it's New York, that'll be a very, very fun matchup.
New York is a special place in Trae's heart, and vice versa.
Right.
I like that. Though. I like that. He uses that negativity to his benefit always.
Exactly. I mean, I just remember that series a couple years ago. It was when DeJounte Murray had gotten suspended, and it was just Trae and everybody else. I think it was game 5. And Boston fans started chanting that F Trae Young chant, and he just flipped the switch. I think he scored the last 14 points, 14 of the last Hawks, whatever points, and hit the game winner. So who knows? Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. We shall see. Thank you for surprisingly being on. We need to get to the bottom of this mystery.
When you guys find out, let me know, because I was pleasantly surprised when I got that invite. I was like, I know we mentioned it, but I didn't think it would happen now.
Yeah.
We know the problem. We know the problem. His initials are ASB.
You know what?
All-Star break.
I'm gonna pray for you, Gary Washburn. That's what I'm gonna do.
We will pray for you as well.
We're gonna make some calls, and we're gonna get you some help after this.
You know what?
I'm just saying, because you're forgetting stuff, man.
I know there's some things I would like to forget.
Oh my gosh! Always starting something.
But I do remember that I went to Syracuse, and I do remember that we better than Cal.
We had 2 Syracuse.
Oh, here you go.
This is where we wrap up.
But that's okay.
Orange.
No, that's enough Syracuse for this episode. Lauren, you are free to go to Magic City. Please grab me some wings.
Just ask for the Washburn special. They'll take care of you.
I just got back from Utah. I'm going to sleep.
That would be an extreme day and night situation.
That's a sharp contrast from Magic City.
Yeah, just a little bit. I think I got to ease my way back up.
Yeah. Lauren, thank you so much. We will chat soon. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate you for having me,
guys.
See you next week.
There you go.
You're gonna actually see her, yeah.
All right, bye guys.
I'll see you. Best episode ever.
Seriously, I mean, I'm still dumbfounded that happened, but whatever.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it's fun. So the Celtics.
Speaking of fun,
talk about them. Speaking of fun, where should we go? Do you want to talk about them beating Denver?
Let's talk about the West Coast trip.
Three wins, 1 loss.
Yeah. That was a good trip. That was a good trip. I mean, it was a good trip. It wasn't a great trip because, to me, winning all 4 games would have made it a great trip.
I feel that.
But they did what they handled their business. They did what they were supposed to do. And the Denver game, you got to put an asterisk next to that one because they did it without Jokic. And Jokic is obviously a major, major game changer. But the Celtics, it started when they beat the crap out of who was that team that they beat like 50 points? Indiana.
Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, I knew it was one of those bad teams. That was one of the first games we've seen their defense play at a really high elite level. And yeah, it was a bad team, but they did not ease up even when they had every opportunity to do so. And when they went out west, their defense I thought was really good in every game. Not great, but really, really good in every game. And it was a level of consistency at that end of the floor that I don't think we've seen enough of. And if they're going to repeat his championships, that end of the floor is what's going to get them a title, not getting buckets and all that stuff.
Well, I thought it was a good road trip. I think that they basically could have went 4-0, a really bad second half at Oklahoma City. And I wrote this, and people will give me a hard time thinking, how dare you talk about our Celtics? But to me, you're looking at, when you look at the Thunder, okay, and now, you look at the Cavaliers. Those are the 2 teams that, because this is, you can say the Celtics are the favorites, and maybe they are, but I look at the Thunder and I look at the Cavaliers are the 2 best teams in the NBA at this point. Cleveland is 31-4. What is Oklahoma City? 30-5 going to their showdown. It's going to start in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. Looking at Oklahoma City, I just saw a team that's deep, right? And they should be deep. They didn't had all these lottery picks and all these first rounders, and they've done well with the draft, and they just got guys coming off the bench making plays. Guys like Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe and the other Jalen Williams and guys who made plays in that game. And I think the Celtics are right now a top 5 team in the league. You can say top 3 maximum, right? You're not better than the Cavs at this point. They're not better than the Thunder. So 3 at the highest, but top 5 at least. If you want to get to a championship level, I think they need to make another roster addition. And I saw that in that Oklahoma City game, they got tired. And it wasn't, because, they had come off a back-to-back against Minnesota and Houston. They had a day off. It was an afternoon game. But I just thought the depth is not quite there. And it's because, to me, they're having some guys who are not having great seasons. And maybe they'll warm up, okay? Al is not having a great shooting season. Drew Holiday, not having a great shooting season. Sam Hauser has dipped a little bit, okay? Those are guys you need to drop a bucket here or there. Peyton, as you guys have noticed, have seen, the league is starting to figure him out. And I'm not talking about he's easy to figure out, but they're paying him more attention. They know he's in the game to shoot threes. They're smothering him. They're making him into a driver and a passer. They're not giving him all these opportunities to score. I mean, there are times where Peyton is just looking for an open space just to release a shot. It used to be, we got to guard Tatum and Brown, or we got to guard, let him shoot a little bit. He had that freedom. That freedom is gone. He is a focus of the scouting report. And I think they need to get more athletic, another wing. If you want to say maybe a Jordan Walsh, is he ready? Probably not. Jaden Springer, a guy that they just has never really developed in the year plus of the year he has been here. He's still kind of a guy at the end of the bench. To me, they need they have 14 roster spots. They need just that one last wing defender, a guy who can drop a bucket. I mentioned maybe Lonnie Walker IV, he's in Lithuania right now. They have that open roster spot. It will cost them some money, because they're in a second apron. But the thing I saw a team that, like you said, Sherrod, is really beginning to defend, okay? But also you want to have depth. You want to have bodies because Oklahoma City, they're going to bring Holmgren back and Caruso. They won that game without their starting forward, and they're probably their best on-ball defender, okay? They won 15 straight without those guys. Mm-hmm. Cleveland, is going to make a move. Like, Cleveland is looking at this and like, this is us. Cleveland is not waiting until next year. Cleveland fully feels like they can win the East and go to the finals. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So believe me, the Cavs are going to make some moves. So for Celtics, our roster's perfect. No, it's not. It could use another body unless you want to depend on guys to get to that, to Hauser to be better. But as I wrote, Hauser's been to the free throw line this year twice. He does not get to the free throw line. So if he's not hitting threes, he's not scoring. He's not all that, and he's not great defensively. He's trying. He was better last year. Their bench has limitations, and guys have taken a little bit of a step back. Drew, Al, a little bit. Mazzulla, as we know, doesn't necessarily always trust Nemi. Sometimes he trusts him, sometimes he doesn't. Jordan Walsh has got the D down, but he's got to get the 3 down. He's not still a great shooter. He's working on it. Down the road, he'll help this team, but I don't think it's this year. So what I saw on this road trip was a team that is very good and is going to get better when they defend more, and as they are, but could use one more little addition, a guy who could get some buckets off the bench, take some load off Tatum and Brown, and just get, because if you're Peyton, you're scoring with the 3. If you're Hauser, you're definitely scoring with the 3. So who off the bench, can get buckets and get to the free throw line, can score other ways. I think, you get a guy who can just, I looked at the Thunder with Wiggins and some of those guys. It was like, wow, those guys can score. And the Celtics have those guys, but maybe not as much if they're not scoring from 3.
Absolutely. Before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to our good friends at PrizePicks, which is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made it daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports. And again, you can win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. That gets you a lot of burritos and all that good stuff that I love to eat.
Chimichangas, yeah.
Exactly, chimichangas, exactly. But and also, in addition to that, PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Just sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, again, is the best way to win real money this basketball season. And how do you get in? Here's what you do. You download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Use the code CLNS, get $50 instantly, and when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
Well done, Sherrod. So let's talk about this roster and specifically the main men. We've seen the Celtics without Tatum, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Porzingis. We're going to quickly play a game of pick and roll. Who do you think they miss the most when he's not there?
Ooh, I'm going to go first, Gary, because you need to think about this and remember what you want to say. I'm going to go with Derek White. And here's why. Derek White does so many little things that they absolutely need to win. And the thing about it, when Derek White misses a game, it really is a big deal because he never misses game. I think he's missed maybe 2 games this year. He missed, I think, maybe 7 or 8 games last season. And then the year before that, he didn't miss any games. So you're talking about a guy that rarely is not in your lineup. So when he's not there, it is a big deal because when you look at guys that have the ability to shoot the way he does, handle the ball, play defense, play off the ball defense, there really isn't one player that can check off enough of those boxes to where you feel comfortable when he's not in a lineup. And with Drew Holiday, having, really lots of highs and lows this year when he's out there, you really can't count on Drew to necessarily pick up the slack if Derek isn't around. So I think Derek is the one guy who, when he's not there, they miss the most.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
There we go.
But I think Drew Holiday is a very essential part of this team, and I think he was last year. So I'm not breaking any news here, but I just think the better they are is the better he is offensively. And it's good to see him starting to play better offensively. He's always going to play defense, but and get to those passing lanes, get a steal here, defensive stop here, or make it hard on opposing, shooting guards. But to me, I think Drew is an essential piece of this team, but Derek, you just missed that his all of what he brings to the table. 3-ball, the defense, the block shots, the intangibles, and so for me, I think White's an essential part. And you got to give him credit. As much as Denver didn't have Jokic, the Celtics didn't have Derek White. We'll see how that goes. He had an illness in addition to Jordan Walsh. But they're starting to get healthy, and I think people are pointing out the injuries they've been besieged. My response to the injury thing, guys, is everybody has injuries. Like everybody is hurt around the league. I mean, you look at some of these, and then you can look at some of these low management people. Kwani, as you know, they
what does that mean?
I know why are you getting shots taken at you? Damn,
getting shade thrown at me.
Yeah, Kwani Leonard.
What would I do? I missed one podcast.
No, you missed more than one, Kwani.
Kwani Leonard.
Chill.
Kwani indeed.
Wait, Gary, did she forget that she missed more than one?
Be your own people, man. Be your own people. I see how it is. I did not expect that stray.
Kwani Simmons,
Damn.
No, I'm messing with it.
That was
But
good.
I'm just talking about the Celtics have been fortunate enough to have two guys in Tatum and Brown that love to play and don't sit out games unless they absolutely have to. And the same with like a Derek White, and I know Holiday's had the shoulder thing. Porzingis is a guy that you can't play in back-to-backs, and you got to always monitor. But they've been relatively for the last month healthy since Porzingis has returned. But I think every team is dealing with injuries, and every time you look up, we see Embiid's out. LaMelo Ball ain't playing tonight. Like you look at League Pass, and somebody from one of the teams that you might want to see play has got a main guy sitting out.
I mean, Gary, not everyone can be Jason Tatum who wants to play on a Tuesday night in Charlotte. Like
that's the problem.
Damn, everybody's catching strays tonight. Even folks not on the show catching strays. Damn,
that wasn't even a stray.
Damn,
you talking about people talk about the league's ratings? Well, that's why, because you can't even count on some team. I was watching Charlotte the other night, and it was like, no Brandon Miller, no LaMelo Ball. Like, why am I watching Charlotte?
Right, who's on this team?
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no offense, but like, why are some of these 21-year-old guys missing like games like that? Like, it's just that's what people talk about the ratings. I think is a lot of the time people are just tired of looking at the TV, looking at buying the league pass, and looking.
Don't know who's on the screen.
Yeah, we don't even know who's playing.
That's very real. Actually,
you can't even count on your top players for your top teams playing. And I think the Celtics have been fortunate that they don't have any of those guys that be like, oh man, I'm just gonna take tonight off, but I'll be there next day. I'll be there next game. I think
that check gonna clear on the 15th, right? That check gonna be on the 15th.
Yeah,
right?
The check's clearing. The check's clearing. So I think for the Celtics, the best thing is try to stay healthy, get those guys together, play a cohesive cohesion with their starting five, and then move forward into the second half of the season, because we're almost, I think it's a game 37, the 27-10, like we're almost at the halfway point here. Even though it's not the All-Star break yet, that's not for a month, we're about to have almost at the halfway point of the season.
That's a really good point. So you mentioned Queta a bit earlier in the pod. I want to talk about him really quickly. 8 points in 8 minutes versus Denver, but then he gets a DNP CD versus Oklahoma City. So would you two say he's being used properly by Joe Mazzulla? Is there any other underlying issues that we're not aware of? Because what's going on with Queta essentially? I
think there's certain matchup Queta flourishes in, and there's certain ones that he doesn't. And I don't think he's gaining total trust of Joe Mazzulla in terms of like where you can use him every game. Mm-hmm. And even though, I mean, it's hard. I mean, he played 8 minutes against Denver. He had 8 points. He scored at the rim, but he was like a -10 in that stretch. And there was people were blaming him. Oh, the Queta minutes were terrible. You got to pull Queta out of there. I'm looking at social media during the game, at X during the game, and people are just ripping Queta because it's like not all his fault that Denver made a run in the second quarter. But I think he kind of gets a bad rap. And I think you got to give him reps to get out there and learn. I also think though he fouls too much, and as much as he's a guy who's going to dunk on you, like I wish Kornet too much. As much as I think he's brought something to the table, Kornet does not look to score. So he gets the ball 3 feet from the basket, and he just looks to pass it. Like, no, Luke, you're 7 foot. Dunk on somebody, or at least try. If you get blocked, everybody gets blocked. It happens.
It's a rite of passage.
Yes. But what you have to do is dunk on somebody, try to dunk on somebody's head. Be more aggressive. Luke, if you wish you could put Queta's aggression into Luke or whatever, and his dog into Luke, but you just got to blend them both together. Obviously, they trust Kornet more, especially defensively, than they do Queta. And I just think it's going to be a process for Queta. He's a guy who, didn't get a lot of reps and stuff during his years in Sacramento. This is his second full season with the Celtics. And he's still, obviously they're trusting him more, but it just, for whatever reason, at times they just they keep him on the bench. And I think maybe he can do some things to get their trust, maybe in practice, maybe in certain games. But for now, he's going to be a guy who's going to be in the lineup and out of the lineup.
Agreed. Before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to our good friends at GameTime, which is where you get some of the best ticket prices on all types of sporting events as well as concerts. When I am thinking about going to any type of basketball game or a concert, GameTime is the first place that I go. One of the cool things about GameTime is that it has all-in-one pricing where you literally find out what you're paying and you don't get the gotcha moment when you get to the checkout. They also have panoramic views of the seats before you get to the checkout, so you know what your sightline looks like before you get there. All you have to do to get in on this is to download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's download the app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off. Terms apply. What time is it? Game time.
All right, let's quickly fill in the lane. Go around the NBA. We'll start with Sherrod. Your Detroit Pistons. You're like, what am I talking about? It's always your Detroit Pistons.
Wait. Did you say what did you say?
Detroit. What is he going? Oh my god. Is he about to bring a Lions jersey? Oh, I thought it was gonna be a Lions jersey. I mean, honestly, a Lions jersey would have been justified at this moment. Shout out to Detroit for that. I'm not sure what's going on with this Detroit Pistons finger. I don't think anyone wants to see that. All right, let's censor that image, please, in post.
The Pistons. You talking about my Pistons?
Yeah.
500 Pistons.
Exactly. Pick and roll, though. The Pistons will or will not make the playoffs this year. Tell me what you think now.
They will make the playoffs.
Because of the Lions?
What's that?
Because of the Lions and their inspiration to the city?
Nah. It's just their time. I mean, they've been a mediocre to subpar team for too long. They've got too much momentum, and they've got the right coach for what they need to get to the playoffs. J.B. Bickerstaff is a great starter coach. By that, I simply mean he's able to get your team moving in the right direction. You're not going to win a championship per se with him, but he can get your team ready to be a playoff contender. And that's what he's doing with Detroit. I mean, think about it. I mean, we're not even at the All-Star break, and they've won more games than they did each of the last couple seasons. And by the time we get to the All-Star break, hell, he may have more wins than they've had the previous two seasons combined. So give him a lot of credit. And Coach of the Year, we'll talk a bit about that later. But the Pistons are going to make the playoffs because I just think they're built to do that. And they finally have an elite superstar top tier player in Cade Cunningham to kind of lead that effort because he's having an all-star caliber season. I don't know if he'll be an all-star, but he certainly is having an all-star level season.
Well done. All right, the next ones are going to actually be filling the lane. That was the only pick and roll one we got for this game. Jimmy Butler, the saga continues, but how will it end? Fill in the blank. How will the Jimmy Butler saga end? For those who don't know, he requested a trade. The team suspended him. It's a lot going on. If you don't know what's going on, you should probably just read about it because Jimmy Butler is not happy, has no joy in Miami, of all places. At least playing basketball. I don't want to misquote him.
Please don't.
I won't do that.
Well, I think he's going to have to eventually go back to the Heat. They're not going to trade him by the time they get back from this West Coast road trip. So do you just tell him and make an agreement for him to stay away from the team, or do you put him back in uniform and try to increase his trade value? And then he's starting, according to our friend Chris Haynes, his people are telling certain teams don't even trade for we don't even see your ass in the vicinity.
Don't talk to them. Don't talk to the Heat. Don't talk to Pat Riley.
Don't call.
Yeah.
Jimmy don't want to go there, and Jimmy ain't opting in, and Jimmy ain't
resigning. Where does Jimmy want to go? That's the real question for me.
I think he wants to go to Houston, Dallas, or Phoenix. Phoenix does not want Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's contract is amazingly crazy. It's one of the worst deals probably in the league history. And, and some guys just don't age well. And Beal is not aging well at 30, 31 now. He's supposed to be kind of probably at the end of his prime. 31's a very good age for a lot of players. But some players, it's the end of their prime. Their prime is over. And Beal can't stay healthy. And it's not working in Phoenix. So I think but Miami doesn't want that contract because he has 2 more years and he has a no trade clause, I think, in that deal. So you got to have a third team. I've been told, I've heard, and maybe Sherrod's Detroit Pistons get involved. You get them another old head and get Beal and bring him in and then really try to make the playoffs because honestly, Sherrod, I don't think the Pistons are going to make the playoffs because I don't say that. I say that because, one, if you look at the East, okay, there's 11 teams for 10 spots. The 11th team is Philadelphia, okay? You have to assume the Sixers are gonna put it together a little bit.
Nope.
Okay.
He's trusting the process.
Well, I'm trusting I think they'll put it together a little bit. So they're going to take somebody's spot, Chicago or Detroit. I would think I think the Bulls, in terms of being a more veteran team, will hang on. I think their coach's job is on the line, Billy Donovan. I think the Bulls will definitely push the play-in. The Pistons, what's going to happen when the games really count in February, March, and April? We don't know yet. I think it's going to be – I think it's going to go down to the wire, but I think Philadelphia is going to probably take their spot because if you look at the East, there's Brooklyn. They're not going to make it. Then there's Charlotte and Washington. Okay, they're out. Toronto. So there's 11 teams for 10 spots. The playoff teams are pretty much set besides, like, who's going to make that final play-in. Detroit, right now they're doing well. Chicago's right behind them. But I just think Philadelphia looming – I mean, I just don't see Philadelphia completely missing everything. I think they'll make the play-in. But I think, going back to the Beal thing, maybe he adds something. We'll see. But the Butler thing, I just think it's going to last until the 11th hour, and then maybe he'll work a trade, or maybe he'll say, just get me out of here. Or maybe he'll say, listen, I'm opting out, and y'all get nothing for me. But I think a trade, probably a 3-team deal, will consummate sometime by the trade deadline.
Consummate. Well done.
Well done, Cal Bear.
Thank you.
Biggest word.
All right. Next one. Zion Williamson back after 27-game absence with that hamstring injury. Zion will miss blank more games this season, speaking of load management. What's the number?
At least 15.
Dang.
At least 15.
I'm surprised he's still in the league. Like, not even trying to be funny.
I mean, he's been in the league 5.5 years, and he's played a whopping 191 games. Now, without even doing the math, I can just tell you right now, that ain't that many games. That would be basically 2 1/3 full season. So he's literally missed about basically 3 seasons worth of basketball if you take out injuries and stuff like that. And the thing about Zion is this. I don't know if he's ever going to be healthy enough to play in New Orleans because I don't think he's motivated to play healthy in New Orleans. When you think about it, how would he play in a city like Boston, New York, LA, Golden State? They're not having it. And I honestly think if he were to be in a major market, his mindset would be, damn, I got to start balling out a little bit. In New Orleans, he ain't got to worry about that because it's clear where they are with him and where they are without him. Places like New York and Boston, if you're a great player and you, for whatever reason, are just injury prone, that train ain't going to wait for you to get healthy. The train will keep moving without you. That can't happen in New Orleans. So he, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be self-motivated enough to keep himself healthy. And I know this last injury, it wasn't directly tied in him, conditioning, things like that. But he has had so many damn injuries that have been tied into a lack of conditioning that you have to figure there's probably a domino, effect of some sort when he is healthy enough to play, but his body is not responding the way it's supposed to the exertion that he's putting on it. He's going to miss at least 15 more games. I can't see any scenario around that not happening because he has shown himself to be incapable of staying healthy in New Orleans.
Yeah. The Pelicans have 45 games left. They'll be actually, and Zion will be in Boston on Sunday. And we think, and the question is, and I agree with Sherrod on this point to 15 or 20, because one, now if you're New Orleans, the season is essentially over. There are 24 games out of the from the top of the West. They're 24 games, 7-30. They're 24 games out from Oklahoma City. They're 12 games or 11 and a half games out of the play-in. Like, it's not happening. You're not going to make up 11 and a half games.
Get that first round pick.
Yes. So you're playing now for the lottery. You're playing for potentially for Cooper Flag.
Yep.
Okay, because they have the worst record in the NBA. They're 7-30. The Wizards are 6-28. So now they got a chance to get Cooper Flag.
Yep.
So why would you play Zion and win 5-6 more ball games? At this point, it's over. I think in terms of like them viewing him as an organizational piece and a cornerstone. I think now he's got to figure out, okay, where do I fit in? Where's my future? We all knew when he got into the league and he was 19 years old that he probably had 10 years with his torque, his body. He had a 10-year career. Okay. He's not going to play till he's 35. He had 10 years, and it's been even worse than any of us could have imagined. His injuries, the lack of conditioning, it's just been a nightmare. Okay. Even in Memphis, they're like, damn, we got Ja Morant, and we wouldn't take Zion. Like, Ja had acted a fool and gotten suspended and all that. But Memphis ain't regretting not taking Zion, right? So everybody understands the situation. We're all at this point like waiting for the next injury to come. Mm-hmm. Okay, Zion, that's a beautiful move. Oh, that's a great dunk. But when you're gonna play 5 games and then you're gonna get hurt again, like when it's that point, I just think you just gotta plan for the future. And I think if you're the Pelicans, they're a smart organization. I think they have smart management. They're a terrible team. They're second in the 29th in the NBA in point differential. It means they lose every game by 10 points a game. They're terrible. They're 2-15, terrible. 2-15 on the road. They won the other night. They won, I think, 2 back-to-back games because they beat the Wizards. So it's like they beat the other worst team in the league. They had a home and road against the Wizards. They won both. So I think if you're the Pelicans, why would you want to play Zion, the last 45 games? Why would you want to put him out there? To me, you just move forward. I say miss 15 to 20 games. Sherrod's right.
Right. And Gary, by moving forward, if you're able to get a guy like Flag, Zion then becomes a extremely tradable asset. Mm-hmm. And you can send him on, and you can probably get some. If he can stay relatively healthy and he starts missing games because it's clear that they're just trying to basically build for the future / try to get that top pick, he could hoodwink someone into giving up something real for him. And if you're because New Orleans, I think they are at that point where they have to seriously consider hitting the reset button with Zion Williams and get him somewhere, get whatever assets they can in return and build around someone else. And Cooper Flag certainly would be that type of player that they'd want to build around.
All right. The final one is blank is my coach of the year thus far.
Oh, this is easy. Jamal freaking Mosley, Orlando. The fact that they're winning without their best and second best player and top reserve, and the fact that they've been doing this all season long, winning without guys within their top 4, top 5 rotation, you can't. That's not talent that you're winning with. You're coaching your ass off to win games, and I give Jamal a tremendous amount of credit for what he's been able to do with that team, because the thought that many of us are having, and I don't think it's all that out of the blue or crazy, is that if they're able to get those guys back by the All-Star break, they could potentially go on one of those runs where they're one of the top 3 teams in the East. Because right now they've been able to hang around in that 4, 5, and maybe slip down to 6, but they've been pretty much the 4th or 5th best team in the East all season. If they get their core guys back with enough time in the regular season, they could easily go on a run and, frankly, wind up being a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. And the thing that they do, and Gary, I know you've noticed this as well, is they play hard. I mean, they got a roster full of guys that were taken in the first round, but they play like they all on 10-day contracts, and it's day 9. They do this every single game. They are, without question, one of the hardest playing teams in the NBA. And when you have the deficiencies that they've had as far as guys in and out of the lineup, you can't do anything but play hard if you want to win. And I give Jamal a tremendous amount of credit of convincing those guys that even when they have all the pieces together, they play really hard. And when those guys are missing, they played even harder. And that's why, to me, they are the team I don't want to see in the playoffs at all. And that's why Jamal Mosley is my coach of the year so far.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with Sherrod. I can also say there's 2 other coaches I can mention. Mm-hmm. Taylor Jenkins in Memphis with all the issues and injuries they've had. JB Bickerstaff in Detroit. And also somebody that no one even knows about is Mitch Johnson in San Antonio.
Yeah.
The interim coach who obviously Pop is still recovering. Great Pop is still recovering from a stroke. Mm-hmm. We hope he's back soon. But Mitch Johnson is led him to a 500 record. Like they're in the play-in if the season ended. Like they're battling for those final for a play-in spot. And that's for a team that one is extremely young, very green, obviously with Wemby, but you bring in Chris Paul. And they're fighting, they're fighting every night. And you gotta applaud that. I mean, the Spurs are a team that's like you don't want to play with Wemby and a lot of those young guys, Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, the UConn kid. Like, I like what the direction they're headed in, and maybe a new voice might have been a little bit necessary. So I give some votes to Mitch Johnson in San Antonio, but I gotta admit, Jamal Mosley, one of the good guys, too. He's one of those longtime assistants who waited a while to get his first job. And he has those guys playing defense. You know how hard it is? I mean, and you know how hard it is because we've all dealt with Sherrod and Sherrod being very hard-headed and things like that. Listen. You know how hard it is to get guys who are hard-headed to play defense? Like, it's like getting Sherrod to agree, to do something that's the right way, the right thing to do, as opposed to what Sherrod wants to do. Like, like
walking away from Magic City. Yeah, you're right.
It's how hard it is.
You tell. Never mind. Keep going.
Yeah, exactly. It is very exactly, Sherrod. It is very hard to get young people to play defense, to have a defensive mindset. Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter, like the Wagner brothers, Banchero, for them to have a defensive mindset for being such, because young guys want to score, they want to score, they want to be on the cover of the magazines and the cover of the websites, and they want to get to the All-Star games, and it's all about us, me. I want to. Orlando's like, no, we gonna win ugly. We gonna play hard defense. You're gonna come away playing the Magic with some bruises and bumps. You're gonna come away with some scars, and that's and they don't have many veterans. Like, they're a young team that loves to play and relishes defense, and that to me is what great coaching does, because it's hard to get, as Sherrod and you guys know, Kwani, it's hard to get young people disciplined enough to love to play defense. They love to score, they love to shoot, but to play D, that's hard, and Mosley has those boys playing D down there. They had a big impact on that Celtic game. They shut down the Celtics in the second half, and now they're getting Banchero back probably this week. Franz Wagner will be coming back in probably another couple of weeks. So you said, Sherrod, they're going to get healthy, and they're going to be a factor down the stretch.
Yeah, they just, they remind me a little bit of that first team that Rick Carlisle coached in Detroit. That had Jerry Stackhouse and pretty much nothing but Jerry Stackhouse, just basically 8-9 other guys who played defense. And they made every game living hell for the other team. They would beat you 89-85 and that was like an offensive breakout game. The thing that Jamal has done, and I think this is really it's important to understand, is he has kept things really simple with them. He's not trying to come up with he's not trying to reinvent the game and come up with these incredible play hard every play, period. Guard your yard. That's literally all I want you to do every single day. And they're like, okay, we can do that. And that, okay, we can do that is something that is very rare to get. Rare to get a team. Hell, you're lucky to get like 2 or 3 guys that are willing to buy in, sell in for that type of mentality. He's got a whole team of them. That's why, like, watching Orlando play, I mean, it's like watching a team of junkyard dogs out there. They ain't playing. They are out to do one thing: score one more point than you. That's all they want to do. Give me one more point than you, and we're good. We don't care how it happens. Make it happen. So yeah, Jamal. To me, I really hope that if he continues along the path that he's on, that those who are voting for that particular award will recognize what he has done and the circumstances from which he's done. Because I know JB's had a good year. There's at least 4 or 5 other coaches who've had really good seasons. What JB has done is, or excuse me, what Jamal has done is special. Mm-hmm. There's no one that's getting guys to buy in the way he's been able to get guys to buy in.
All right, well, that's all we have for this week's episode of the Big Three. I hope you enjoyed this entertaining journey as much as I did. One more reminder, please vote for us for the Sports Podcast Awards.
This should have been the damn entry right here.
Right, but, you know, if they got this far, they're real ones anyway, so we really appreciate you. But voting does close on the 13th. Just go to sportspodcastgroup.com/shortlist category. We're actually right at the top because it's in alphabetical order, and just click through and vote for us. Any final words from you two? Namaste.
I'm good.
There we go. Thank you all for watching or listening. For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis. This is the Big Three NBA Podcast.